Indigenous and women-led activist movements. They have been at the forefront of the nuclear movement since it began, and I believe that dismantling the nuclear beast would not be possible without them. That's it.
All right, let's bring the students back up here. I'll have everybody line up here. All right. Celebration of lots of hard work over the semester, and they were very excited to share their work with you all. So are there any questions that anyone has? Sue, can you help with that? Okay, Diane's got a question. Any other questions? And then Kevin, anybody else? I'll take Stack. Okay, go. Okay, go for it, Kevin.
Just a couple quick questions. The author of the children's book, I don't remember people's names, about the
Alex.
mushrooms as a hopeful thing. It came up yesterday too. I don't know if you were here, but the concern that the mushrooms are now radioactive. And so just to be sure, just very quickly in Chernobyl, after Chernobyl in Belarus, there was an international program to help clean up soil. And plants were used, I don't remember which kind. And they forgot to inform the farmers that the plants are now radioactive. They were left believing that it's just a magical cure, and they actually fed the plants to their cows, which contaminated the cows. So that danger. And my second question was the last speaker just now. I'm struggling with the constitutional legality of the president. I know what you said about international law, it's against international law, but I think there's an argument to be made in US law that it's also, and I know they're struggling in Congress right now with that question. How can one person, the president, have this ability? Like Congress is supposed to appropriate the money for everything and declare war. So if the president starts a war with a nuclear bomb, how is that legal? Congress didn't say to do that, so.
Does this work? Okay. Yeah, so there was a, I forgot the exact name of it, but there was a committee meeting and they assessed the authority that Trump has over launching the codes. That was just an assessment of the regulations that are currently set in, but right now there is a specific process that the president can go through to launch nuclear codes. And that's still set in place. I'm not sure exactly like the whole bureaucracy of it, but if an event were to happen, but right now it's kind of set that he can go through that process, and it's not a very lengthy process either.
I think it's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right here? Wait, Joni, do you want to say something about that?
The Constitution is very clear that Congress is the only entity that can declare war. And part of the hearing that Senator Corker had a couple weeks ago, and I'm just offering this as history. So during the Vietnam War, when I was in junior high school, the Gulf of Tonkin event happened, and they said that the president could declare war, and Congress didn't act. So it's a really important fact for your generation to know as we continue to discuss this whole thing with North Korea, that it was a scam back then, and they're trying to perpetuate it to continue that to now. So I just offer that as not a criticism, but it was a scam back then, and we thought that we didn't have any power to really challenge it. But it goes to the core of what national security is for the United States. And the people here, when we give our power, the power is with the people. We give our power to these people who as other people described, get corporation funding, blah, 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 blah. I'll get off my soapbox.
It also challenges democracy, I think, because when we have a president who has the ability to launch nuclear weapons without checks or balances, and we supposedly elected this person, where's the democracy in that decision? I think that's something that we've also brought up throughout the semester. Wait, there was another question though for Alex. Alex, did you want to?
Oh, oh, is it on? Okay, there we go. So at the end of the book, all of the things I addressed were just little tidbits. So I just informed them that this is something people are working on. I didn't necessarily spend a whole page or anything on it. It was just included in there. So I feel like it would be a totally separate book to go into things like that. So it's just a basic overview.
This is really great. Each and every one of these was so impressive. Thank you so much for all that work. So I have two questions. One is general. I saw that everybody is quoting Robert J. Lifton, and I probably should know who that is, but I don't. So if somebody could tell me about who that is. And then the second question is for Trenton. I wanted to know about the statistical significance of those comparisons that you made between the, when you had the bar graphs and the difference between the characteristics that were different between the people by Superfund sites and the people that weren't.
Yeah, we've seen pretty significant differences between the groups in areas of asthma and high blood pressure, as well as reporting higher mental health problems. In the paper I go into it a lot more, and obviously there are some like problems with working with survey data, and we need in that area needs to be like researched more, the actual impacts of contamination and public health. It was just a basic comparison.
There was a question about Robert J. Lifton.
Yeah, who wants to take that one?
I'll take it.
Huh?
So Robert J. Lifton, I think he's a psychologist. So the reason why we all probably cited him is because we read a lot, him in Eileen's class, but some of us used him for additional research, but he's a great guy. He writes about a lot of nuclear issues kind of in the realm of social psychology. Yeah.
What term did he coin?
Nuclearism.
Any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
First off, really thanks again for everybody doing the hard work. The question I had for the idea of can Trump launch everything and basically end the world as we know it? We do have a constitution that still says that the power resides in the Congress to do war. And what we're confusing here is that an act is standing on the principle of the thing. I don't know if you can go think about that a little bit, but yes, we do have elected representatives and they can make acts, okay, an act of Congress, which they did. The War Powers Act in 1975 gave the powers on over to the president, supposedly, to go ahead and do war, as long as he got back to Congress in 60 days, was it 30 days? I'm trying to remember. 60 days, and said, I had a war going on, and I hope you like it, and please fund it. Okay, that's a really bad idea. We never changed our Constitution by the amendment process, which is required by our Constitution. If you want to change something as radical as that, you have to go through the amendment process to get it done. Our Congress did not do that and continues to fall back on this, allowing every president since 1975 to go play war. And that's a really bad idea. And then
Do you have a question?
Yes, the question I had on the, well, another comment on the last one is that there's 2 boats going out inside of the next 6 months. One is going out in about 2 weeks. It's called the Golden Rule, which originally was supposed to go out to the Marshall Islands with the Veterans for Peace to oppose the dropping of more bombs out in that area for experimentation purposes, and it sort of got sunk. We still don't know who ended up doing it, but it's heading back out there again. And then the other one is by Dana Durnforth, who is with, he's called himself the nuclear proctologist, and he's going to go up the Vancouver coast to check on radiation out there. So, and the question I have is, if you could do this all over again, what would each one of you do a little differently?
Again.
In terms of making it a better program, now that you've seen
A better program?
a better program, like what we're doing here today. Just a quick, one-liner.
Okay, does somebody want to comment?
I think really quickly in response to the discussion of the Constitution, it's really important to realize, and I think for our generation, it's hard to conceptualize a government that congressionally recognizes war, because we grew up in the War on Terror. That's not a recognized war that was authorized through the Defense Authorization Act. So I think that frames a lot of our perspective on that topic specifically, because we have seen a war being fought for our literal whole lives that was never authorized by Congress. So I think that's important to consider, but I didn't have an answer to the question.
Well, I feel very proud of these students. I think they did a great job. I wouldn't change a thing, frankly. So we're gonna move on unless there's any other quick questions. Any other quick questions? And I just want to point out what these students are doing is very unique, and I really did throw them in the pit of the fire by putting them in front of you all in particular with these projects. They had 1 semester to do this, but I just want to point out that many of these projects will be available on nuclearnewmexico.com, and you know, over the course that this class has been taught, there have been a number of projects that have been archived and already are being used in the community. And so the whole idea here is that we want to break down the ivory tower. We want to tear it down. We're not interested in consolidating ideas and making them inaccessible and unavailable to people and making them more expensive. Ideas, especially when they involve the survival of the human species, should not be expensive. And so these students didn't write papers that only I read and then we forget about them. They're doing work that is engaged with the community. So they deserve another round of applause. And we're going to take a quick break now. Let's take about 10 minutes. Can we take 10 minutes? And then we're going to meet back in here for the kind of closing wrap up. And I know it's been a long weekend, but we do want to close in a good way, come together and kind of bring together all the pieces, all the threads of everything that we've begun this weekend. right. Could we maybe shut that door, Joni? Thank you. We're all going to watch Leona edit this. Well, we've reached that moment where we are wrapping things up finally. That's where my mind space is. No, I'm really excited to be coming together with you all to kind of conclude this weekend, this symposium, which we very boldly used words like historic and timely and unique to describe this weekend. And I don't know, what do you all think? Did we live up to that? I think so. It's always a little scary to do something for the first time. And we as a group at the Nuclear Issues Study Group, we're a baby group. And yet within not even 2 years of being a group, we decided to do this as our first event. So I'm just so proud to be a part of something like this. And I really think it is important to give credit where credit is due. So I just real quickly want to bring up the group right now. Can you all come up and just quickly be embarrassed publicly? Graham. So Brendan, Cody.
Yeah, it's behind the...
So, and I know you've heard about this a lot this weekend, but this group came together in a really kind of organic and amazing way. We've got students, we've got community members, we have queer folks and straight folks and two-spirit folks, we have people of color and white folks, and we've been really intentional about, again, foregrounding the ways that we are different, but how those differences are sources of strengths. And so it's amazing. Look at this group of people up here who put this on.
Okay, so so during this portion, we want to honor all of those who have done the work. We're going to do that in a minute, and I think just the simplest way to say that by inviting all of you here, and by all of you being here, students, activists, community members, we also honor your presence here and want to thank you for being with us all weekend, especially those who have traveled and all the years of work that are in this room. You know, if we added it all up, it's hundreds of years, and we represent hundreds of lives and generations. And so I'm also very happy to have this very powerful group of people up here. There should be 10 of us. There's 10 of us. There's 11. Okay. So we're all here, and and I just want to say something about each of these people who I've come to meet, some for the very first time, and some I've known for years. And so Joel, down at the end, sometimes can be quite soft-spoken, but I was just amazed by that very powerful, strong voice he had when he did his poetry the other night. That was just amazing. And Joel has brought some very good insight to the group, and I think his background and his experience, he's the one that keeps pushing us that we need to work on the weapons. And we will work on the weapons, Joel. So can we just honor Joel and give him a round of applause? And Peter Clark has done a lot of work on the Leonard Peltier issue and has come into our group, and so has always been a person to support the indigenous movement. And without Pete's help, we wouldn't have the access to some of the sources that we needed for our financial and online resources. And then internally, the same thing. He just came in kind of toward the end, but provided some much needed resources and support, but also is a personal friend of mine, and I just want to say thank you to Pete for all the work that you've done. And Sue Skirman, I don't know I can't say enough, because we only have a short amount of time, but some of these people have just been outstanding, and Sue is one of these people. She's the director of the Peace and Justice Center, which that alone speaks for itself, because the amount of work she has over there and the amount of hours she's put in with this group and the support that we get from the Peace and Justice Center has been very strong, because we have somebody who has helped us to learn how to utilize this center. Without her, I don't think we would have known what is available to us as a Pajola group. So we pay our annual membership and we utilize that place as much as possible. And it's because of Sue that we have a meeting space and access to, we know when the newsletter deadline is, we get all those things in there. And so besides that, she's just also another personal friend. I want to say thank you to Sue very much. And Cody, I can see him getting nervous over there. I really appreciate this young man. I had to really haggle him to get to the Chicago meeting last year, and I had to bug him, and he got special permission to turn in a final late or to do some kind of thing. And yeah, so I also thank his instructor for allowing him to do that, because without him going to the meeting and learning about CIS, I don't think we would have someone on the phone calls with the National Organizing Committee, and I think he just took amazing leaps forward in the short amount of time that I've known Cody. So let's all give Cody a big round of applause, and thank you. And so Denise was our taskmaster. So Denise kept us in line while we were organizing this thing. Denise helped also to do some of the research for the presentation I did the first day. And Denise, I know she likes to be behind the scenes, but what she does is very much at the forefront of what this group is all about. And I think her trip to Japan, her semester in Japan, and the growth that I have seen in this young woman over the short amount of time I've known her is immeasurable. And I just want to say, thank you so much. So when I talk about Brendan, I'm going to also have to mention our group. I think we have this unofficial mascot. So Brendan has come into he's joined our circle. Brendan is Eileen's brother, and he came in and he helps with whatever we need help with.
I have to say, though, he's much more than my brother. My poor brother often gets referred to as my brother. So.
Right. But he's his own person, as we all are. But I mean, he's helping with the meetings, he's helping with everything, just doing so much for our group. And also, he has the cutest little dog named Scruffy, who helps with maybe some of the, what do you call those? Like, he's kind of like a service dog, I think, for all of us. Emotional support, moral support. So to Brendan and Scruffy, thank you very much. And for Summer was one of the earliest members of the organization, and Summer has been there as one of the founding members, and I really just appreciate them and the story they shared today about being arrested and all of the work, the food support, getting the donations, and just being a part of our organization. Summer, you bring a lot to this group, and I want to say thank you. And some of these students came from Eileen's class, and we're just super impressed by some of the things these young people have done. And so Graham is one of those young people that has just went above and beyond. And I have some people out there commenting to me like, who is this guy? He's like, he told me, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. What do you need? Just let me know. And so I want to see more of that, Graham, because what you have done for this conference has been it's more than we could ask. And everything Graham has done, Graham is from the Grants Mineral Belt, and he also wants to continue the work on uranium mining. And so we're also going to connect that, but it's nice to have somebody from the impacted community. And so we're going to build, because just like Joel with the weapons, I know Graham wants to do some work on uranium mining. So we're going to do it. We're going to do that work together, Graham. And so let's all give Graham a thank you. Yeah. And so Tino, I've actually known for quite some time and came into this group early on, and for the conference has organized not one, but 2 events, maybe 3 events, because Tino did both of the evening art, the first art reception, and also the night last night. Tino organized all of that and organized all of the artists to come in. And Tino has been there in our group this whole time, keeping us in the conversation of things that Tino has been a part of, talking about Standing Rock and some of these other things, which sometimes we forget because we're so focused on the anti-nuke work. So I just want to say thank you for Tino, to all of your work on the art events and the art exhibit and being a part of the group. Thank you. And Eileen. I don't know what to say about Eileen. Sometimes she embarrasses me because she says things about me, but now I get my chance to get her back. I went on tour with Eileen and the In-Betweens last summer, and that was quite an experience, and I got to know this group. But the music that this woman produces, it just really touches my soul, and it makes me cry, because to hear the work I'm not a musically inclined person, and so to know the talent that this woman has and how she utilizes it to make such beautiful art of such an ugly, ugly situation, I am so indebted to her, because not only is her art so special to me, we've been friends for a while, since 2013. We met in CARD, and we got to know each other, and we built this thing together. We've been collaborating about it for years before this group even existed. Every piece, every step, how we introduce ourselves at meetings, how we have decided that this vehicle of her class, the 2 sustainability studies classes, is the reason why some of us are here today. But also, we knew we had to design something that had to connect the students to the work. And at first, we tried to do this through the high school system, but we knew that wasn't as easy because of the core curriculum standards in the United States. And so she just blew me away by creating this class. And I know this class should be taught in every college. It should be a requirement in the core curriculum. So I want to say thank you to Eileen.
Okay, I have to continue embarrassing you then if I do that every time I introduce you. Well, I mean, I think we all know that Leona Morgan is the heart and soul of what happened this weekend. That is so clear. And I view her as a mentor in my own life, and I am indebted to her for basically teaching me how to fight the beast and how to dismantle it. And it's been an honor and a privilege to work alongside her and alongside all of these incredible humans to do this. And forgive us for taking this much time, to thank people, but I think this is really important because I want you to know how this works. I want you to know that this wasn't just like some magical thing that appeared and happened. It didn't, it took hard work, and we had to work through conflict, and we had to figure out the money, and we still have to figure out the money and the food and everything. And it's just like, it takes this to do this. It takes this many people, and and we're grateful that you all are here. And yesterday, Lindsay, who was here from Georgia, she stayed with me over the weekend, and we were up late, up till 1 a.m. last night talking about everything. And Leona asked her, she said, Lindsay, what would you like to see at the end of this conference? How do you think we should end it? And she said, I think you need to point out how this conference, how this symposium was filling a gap and filling a hole and a need in the anti-nuclear movement, however we want to frame that, the fight against nuclear colonialism. That's what we tried to do this weekend, and I really believe that we did that. So hopefully you can see what it took and what it's going to take to continue that.
So the other thing Lindsay said was, at the beginning, we kind of laid it out. This is what we're going to do, and then we did it. And so now here we are telling you all that all of us, we completed this journey together this weekend, and we are so happy. I think all of us are, I know we're all tired, but the amount of, the appreciation I think all of us have for all of you, you know, there's a lot of people missing right now that were here throughout the weekend, and we also acknowledge a lot of them, and I mean, work with them, you know, daily. But we also thank all of you for being here, and the fact that we got through it together. This is a huge success on our part as a group because, like I said, it's our first event. But we hope that we continue to do this work. We hope that all of us, one of our main things during this whole weekend was just to stay united. And I think in our work here, we've also become united with you all, and you all being here have hopefully become united with us. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being here. And so, yeah. And with that, we have a lot of other acknowledgements to make. And so I'm going to ask the study group if I left anyone out. Maybe you want to stay close. So I'm going to read the list of folks who helped us with this event. And so please remind me if there's anyone that's not on the list. So first and foremost, we want to thank the UNM Sustainability Studies Department program. I can't say department. Yes. So thank you to SUST. We want to thank La Placita Institute, who helped with the printing of our T-shirts. And of course, yeah, thank you. We want to thank Available Media. And of course, we want to thank our friend from Taos, Robin Collier. Robin Collier has been recording this. Available Media has been providing the AV and the live stream, which will be recorded, and Robin Collier has been recording all the audio, which will be aired eventually on the FM radio station 90.1 FM. Cultural Energy. Okay. Oh, great. Culturalenergy.org. Okay, that's good for us to know. We will embed it. And of course, somebody who has helped some of us personally, and also where I mentioned CARD, I met Eileen there. We want to thank Janet Greenwald, not just for cooking, but for all the support you've given us. Thank you, Janet. And then to the security guards who don't know it yet, but they might be staying a little bit late today. Ryan Swallow and Kenneth J. Lucero. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to let Eileen read some of these.
We also want to thank Sabankar Banerjee, Dr. Banerjee from the UNM Art History Department. They generously donated $500 to us, so we're really grateful to them.
And for keeping us going with caffeine, Oliver Baker, who has provided the coffee for us, but not 1, but 2 days. And also for Georgia Wan, who Lindsay had to leave early this morning, but Georgia Wan sent one of their staff members over. They had been over, they were over, their community people did not have the capacity to come, so they generously let us take one of their staff members for 3 days. And so Lindsay Harper, we would like to thank you, wherever you are, in the air.
And then lastly, we want to thank our friend Cal. Not last, sorry. We also want to thank our friend Cal, who provided generously healing arts massage for so many people. As you are all digesting this heavy information, it's important to integrate the healing arts. So thank you so much, Cal. And they donated the proceeds to us.
And to all the presenters who provided their own travel, I'd really like to thank, I think the first one that jumped up and was like, yes, we're going to be there, was Karen Haddon. And Lon Burnham, I know he didn't speak. And of course, Kevin Camps. And Kevin is from Beyond Nuclear. He came in from DC, and so did Diane Dorigo. Yep. Thank you so much. And I'm looking in the audience because I know, okay, there you are. And so there's some other folks who aren't here that also helped with the event. And so if we left anyone out, we'll have a list of acknowledgments on our website. Anyone? Oh, right. Okay. Who? Okay, Rob from Satellite for the coffee? No? So Clay Benali, Tina Cashel for the art design, the people who donated at the table. We got some online donations. Dave Kraft from NEIS. One of a guy who started a Dine info shop, Brandon Benali. He came in for a minute and he left. Yep. The Sierra Club Nuclear Free campaign. Oh, okay. Yeah, so thank you to that. I'm also part of the front end working group. I should have asked them for some funding for my travel. I'm just kidding. And the Peace Center decided to donate $100. So we got quite a few donations, and we're still taking them. So please feel free to keep giving. And I think we're going to move on now. We also would like to honor some of the people who have been doing the work for before our time. And so I'm going to ask Kevin and Diane to come up and help to tell us a little bit, educate us a little bit about some of our elders in the movement who have passed and the work that they have contributed. And so Kevin has worked with Native people and has extensive experience in doing some of this work. And I know Diane also works with some Indigenous people up in the northern New York. And I just want to say thank you to both of them for being here. And then also, they are my mentors, and they're people who have helped me in the movement. And so, yeah, and please share with us the pictures that we're about to show.
So, yeah.
I didn't know how many Fs.
So,
She's got one.
Should I, Rufina?
Yeah.
So Rufina Marie Laws, back in 1994,
Actually, let me just start it and you tell about her, because the first three are NRS, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the dump that we're fighting now, the dumps at Waste Control Specialists and at Holtec in Lee Eddy County, New Mexico, there's an acronym CIS, Centralized Interim Storage. We call them parking lot dumps because it would bring the waste from around the country to a parking lot in your community, in your state. And this is not the first time that we've been threatened with these parking lot dumps. Back in the late 70s, there was an effort for AFR, away from reactor storage. They changed the name in the 1980s and called it monitored retrievable storage. And the first three or so people here, we worked with intensively to fight the threat mainly to tribal lands. And I'll let you, Kevin, talk about the specifics of some of these folks, but I wanted to put it in the context of this is a continuing fight, and these folks fended it off the last round, and it's up to us to do it this round.
So this photo was taken in 1994 at Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant in Minnesota, which is the Medewa-Kantan Dakota Tribes Reservation. It's an island in the Mississippi River. And the reason that Rufina Marie Laws was there, she was on a national speaking tour against centralized interim storage at Mescalero Apache in New Mexico of high-level radioactive waste. And this company, Northern States Power, it's now called Excel, was one of the worst in that regard. They were trying to get their waste from native land, where it was generated against the tribe's will, out to native land without consent, against the will of people like Rufina Marie Laws. And I was a baby activist. I was only 2 years in at the time. And I got to see her here in Minnesota, and I got to see her in Southeast Michigan. And in both locations, this was a very powerful event, 800 people. There was a canoe flotilla down from the Twin Cities. A lot of Native folks involved, especially Prairie Island, tribal members and residents. And one of the beautiful things I'd never even heard of before was they wove a web of life with colored yarn on the front entrance of Prairie Island Nuclear Power Plant. And they did the same thing in Monroe, Michigan, and she's a very powerful speaker. And Monroe, Michigan is the Fermi nuclear power plant. It's also the hometown of George Armstrong Custer. And there's this larger-than-life monument to Custer celebrating the Battle of Washita, which was a massacre of old people and children, a sleeping village. And the Web of Life was also spun there. So those were very powerful events that really deepened the hook in me to do this fight. And they stopped the dump at Mescalero. So huge victory. Rufina Marie Laws, Joe Geronimo, They were made to suffer for their activism. She received death threats. So
Who's in charge of the video? If you could jump ahead to Joe Campbell, because this goes together. Skip. Okay, right here. Okay, Kevin, you can talk about your...
Check. Just say we honor you about each one of these people, because basically they're with us. They're here. So about Rufina, we honor you.
Do you want me to do Joe?
Yeah, because it's the same thing you're
And
talking
certainly
about. He's
fill in.
Prairie Island.
Yeah, so one of my favorite stories about Joe Campbell at Prairie Island was, so the Department of Energy had this nuclear waste negotiator, and he would go around the country and try to convince especially Native American reservations that they really wanted to host these centralized interim storage sites for high-level radioactive waste. And there was money offered, so that enticed some tribal councils. What they did at Prairie Island was very clever. They took the money, thank you very much. They kept taking the money. They kept going deeper and deeper into the process. And what they were doing with the money, under Joe's leadership and non-Native allies in the area too, was showing how bad a site Prairie Island was, not only for monitored retrievable storage, but for the presence of 2 reactors, on-site storage of radioactive waste. So they really pulled a coup against the Department of Energy.
And now go to Grace Thorpe. She's in this. Oh, okay. Grace Thorpe. Grace Thorpe, so in the 1987 Nuclear Waste Policy Amendments Act, the one they're trying to change now, that one said you could have centralized storage, but you had to find a volunteer for it by 1990. So 1990 came and went, and nobody volunteered, and so at this point it is illegal under our federal laws to have a centralized, supposedly interim storage site. And even back then, when they were trying to push for it, it was supposed to be linked to it. Couldn't open until there was a permanent place already there, so that it would have a less likely chance of de facto being permanent. So Grace, and what Kevin said, they had the nuclear waste negotiator as part of the legislation to entice tribes mainly, but anybody else who would volunteer. And Grace joined forces, her Sac and Fox tribe in Oklahoma. They rejected the idea of having nuclear waste, and she went around with this information and got many nations, Native nations, declared nuclear-free zones. It was a whole nuclear-free campaign, and she was a major part of that. She joined our board at Nuclear Information Resource Service for many years, and she's one of our heroines. Did you want to say anything about Grace?
Yeah, she's also Pokagon Potawatomi, which is where I'm from in Michigan, and just like Eileen and her brother are individual people. Another claim to fame of Grace Thorpe is that her father is Jim Thorpe, athlete of the century. So she not only restored his Olympic medals to him, but she also stopped really 60 of these centralized interim storage sites targeted at Indian reservations across the country. Those were tribal councils that wanted the money, were interested, and she set the example at Sac and Fox in Oklahoma. She called a special election after the tribal council said yes to the DOE money and got the tribal council replaced like 3 days later.
We honor you. Okay, before we do Corbin, let's go back to Margene Ball Creek. And Kevin worked day and night with Margene Ball Creek, the Go Shoots.
Well, after the nuclear waste negotiator ceased to exist, and I should say that at one point his name was David Leroy, and he gave this really awful, infamous speech out west, I think in San Francisco, I don't remember, pointing out that Native Americans are such good stewards of the land and so close to the earth that they're the perfect people to host these nuclear waste dumps. Who better, you know? So after the nuclear waste negotiator position was terminated, and Grace Thorpe and Neers, Mary Olson, Diane DeRigo helped make that happen. Well, the nuclear power industry then took the reins on this idea and went forward, first with Mescalero Apache, and Rufina Marie laws stopped that dump against all odds. And then the next target was Skull Valley Goshoots in Utah. And when I joined NEARS in 1999, Skull Valley was really heating up. And Margene was the leader of the traditionals at Skull Valley, a very tiny community, 125 members. And just like at Mescalero Apache, the opponents like Margene, Bull Creek, and Sammy Black Bear were really made to suffer. There were attempts by the tribal chairman to terminate their tribal membership. He also cut off their federal monies that he was supposed to pass on to them, so they were not getting their income for a number of years. And Sammy Black Bear, somebody took a shot at him across the desert. He didn't know if it was a warning shot or if the person just missed. So they were made to suffer, and they stood strong. And even though the Nuclear Racism Commission rubber stamped this license application, we still stopped it working together. And Margene and Sammy were the leaders of that effort. And
with the new legislation, there's a possibility, if you look at the language of the bill, the HR 3053 that we must all fight to stop, it actually could, because part of why this dump that got licensed in Skull Valley didn't proceed is that the utilities have to keep liability for the waste. So this bill would shift the liability to the U.S. taxpayers even before it goes to a permanent dump, and thus it is a potential threat that the Utah site could be reactivated, and it is licensed. Okay, go to Margene.
We honor you.
Corbin, he's all yours.
Well, I owe a lot to Corbin personally. My first involvement in anti-nuke was in 1992 on the Walk Across America for Mother Earth, which was a collaboration between the Western Shoshone Indians, and Corbin was the spiritual leader of the Western Shoshone, and a Belgian organization called For Mother Earth. Another Shoshone elder, Bill Rossi Sr., came up with that name, and the Belgians loved it. And so we walked from New York City to Nevada, 3,500 miles over 9.5 months to end nuclear weapons testing. And it was the 500th anniversary of Columbus, too. So pretty powerful introduction to all this stuff for me. And Corbin was waiting for us at the test site, and it was called Healing Global Wounds. It was Indigenous Peoples Day, 1992. And after that, the Shundahai Network, which Corbin led, was formed in Nevada. And they just did amazing work. I mean, one time they shut down the highway and the front entrance to the Nevada test site. For a long period of time, there was a big old traffic jam out there. And one of the proteges who came out of that, I'd like to honor too, Susie Snyder, was a big part of the Shundahai Network from a very young age. And then she went on to work for some organizations in Europe, like ICANN, which is about to get a Nobel Peace Prize in a few days. So Corbin inspired vast numbers of people over decades, fighting nuclear weapons testing, fighting the Yucca Mountain dump, just a force of nature. And yeah, so we owe a lot to him.
So Corbin Harney, we honor you.
I don't know if we've got any more pictures on here, do we?
No, but I have a few more names if you guys want to add to the list. And so I'll say the name, and then you guys can repeat what we were saying. So Dorothy Purley is a Native woman from New Mexico, and she had done a lot of work. And so I'm not going to go into detail about these folks, but I'm just going to name and then ask all of you to repeat. So Dorothy Purley. Mary Dan. Karen Silkwood. Silko?
Silkwood.
Say Karen Silkwood. I wrote it right. Michael Marriott. We honor you.
I have from the Ward Valley fight, Steve Lopez, who's with the Fort Mojave, and Claudette White, who is down with Kokopah. Oh God, there's 5 wonderful nations, and those are the two of the many people, Llewellyn from Fort Mojave. So all of the fighters at Ward Valley.
All of the fighters of Ward Valley, we honor you. All of the uranium workers and millers,
we honor you.
all of the downwinders, and to all our relatives. Right. So thank you for helping us with this portion, and we have a few more things to do. So. Okay, so there's a video on there. If you could escape the PowerPoint, and while Denise is queuing this up, so you go to the video, and then don't play it yet, but okay, get rid of that thing. Push Command F. Get it full screen. You got it. It's by the space bar. It's the Apple. Remember, I kept saying Apple. Okay, so this is a video. Okay, before you play it, you're going to stop it at 7 minutes and 14 seconds, okay? All right. Sorry, we got Graham was going to do this, so anyways. So part of the work, we might have did this a little bit backwards. We wanted to honor our elders. We wanted to honor you all in the room, and of course we want to honor our organizers. But we're also going to be taking steps forward. So during this time, we're going to transition into the closing of our event, which this is all part of the closing, but some of the things we talked about moving forward is collaboration. We talked about this walkabout. I talked about doing some international work. And so these folks from Australia, they want to come to New Mexico, and they're dealing with uranium mining there. And so this also goes into our Hall of Victories, because in this video, we're going to see an Aboriginal woman who's dealing with uranium mining, and they're also dealing with nuclear waste dumps in Australia. And so when they come to New Mexico, as an international group, they're going to come here and help us to do some statewide regional work when we do this walkabout. So I just wanted to introduce the two people in the video are from Australia, and Marcus Atkinson is the one that I had been communicating with. He works with the First Nations, the Aboriginal people in Australia. So go ahead, play the video.
Hi, my name is Vicky. I'm one of the native title holders, 12 native title holders for Uluru. Just giving you a bit of a background of where I'm from. Uluru is a place Cameco wants to do uranium mining, but over 40 years my families, my ancestors, all us TOs fought to stop this uranium going ahead. So last week we took Cameco to court. So me and my two aunties, we stood there, listened, went into the courthouse, listened. At the hearing, it was a long sort of day for us, but hopefully in a few weeks or in end of the year or early in the year, we'll hear our answer.
And why did you take Cameco and the state to court, Vicky?
From the beginning. Is it at the beginning? So, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay, because it did go all the way, move it back all the way to the beginning, and then restart it. I'm so sorry, guys.
Hi, my name is Vicky. I'm one of the native title holders, 12 native title holders for Uluru. Just giving you a bit of a background of where I'm from. Uluru is a place Cameco wants to do uranium mining, but over 40 years, my families,
okay, so
my ancestors.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry about that. This video, do you remember where we stopped it? Can you just restart it from there? Basically, these folks, they were battling Cameco, and they're talking about going out in country, and I wanted to point out the significance between the indigenous people over there and their sacred places and here. And so they had to deal with this big corporation, and we want to welcome them and invite them, and I want to invite everyone here to work with us when we organize to meet with them in 2020. So Marcus is about to tell us, he's going to give us a message. We can just cut it there because we're running into time, so if you want to close it out and go back to the PowerPoint. I'm really sorry, guys. I think it's been a long day for me. But yeah, so Marcus goes on to say how they've had several victories and they've been holding the companies back for 8 years and it's been a huge victory, but they're planning to come out in 2019 to do a planning meeting with us. So our group here, they're giving a message of solidarity so they're going to come out in 2019 to visit, do a site visit, and then we're going to plan for our big walk that we want everyone to be a part of in 2020. Okay, so moving on. Sorry, that was a very odd transition. Okay, so we got a couple more of these, and then we're going to close out. So Eileen and I have been working on putting this together, and one of the things that we didn't do yesterday during the event in Chicago, I mentioned that there was this message we had from Dave Kraft. They were listening to a lot of the work by Arnie Gunderson, who switched sides and came to be an activist after working for the nuclear industry. And his work, he did a lot of stuff with Fukushima, and he's an internationally known person, very well respected. Well, let me just read his statement. Okay. So this is a message from Arnie Gunderson. In solidarity, dear Leona and members of the Nuclear Issues Study Group, it is a sad day in history. I am in Chicago, where they will soon commemorate the first controlled fission of uranium in a squash court under Soldiers Field at the onset of World War II. It is appropriate to consider the human and environmental legacy that was created by that event. 1, the instantaneous destruction of 250,000 people at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and further premature deaths and deformities that continue to this day. 2, the destruction of indigenous lands throughout the world in search of a yellow metal called uranium. Thousands of locations are nameless, but Church Rock remains one of the most blatant abuses of Mother Earth in the planet's history. 3, unanalyzed and undocumented health conditions, including premature deaths and deformities near mining sites, dump sites, weapon detonation sites, and nuclear reactor sites throughout the world, falling disproportionately on communities of color and in economic hardship. 4, the invention of depleted uranium weapons used in conventional warfare throughout the world. Nuclear disasters at Fukushima. 5, nuclear disasters at Fukushima, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Santa Susana, Windscale, Mayak, and more. 6, and the potential for a nuclear weapons apocalypse at some point in the not-too-distant future. I join in solidarity with you as we all attempt to end this destructive era, each in our own unique way. Good luck to all of us. Arnie Gunderson, Chief Engineer, Fairwinds Energy Education. So that was a message he sent us.
All right, we have one more message of solidarity from my mentor and teacher in this work as well, someone who I love very much, who's almost 90 years old, who's been doing this work for a very long time. Some of you may know her work. She's an eco-philosopher and a Buddhist scholar, Joanna Macy. So she was unable to be with us, but she sent us this message. It's an audio message.
Hello, all you dismantlers on nuclear issues. This is Joanna Macy, and I have information that I was there in Albuquerque with you this weekend. I haven't heard your words, I haven't seen your faces, but I've been looking at you, and I feel a deep kinship with you.
So I want you to feel, even though we're thinning out as a crowd, it's been a long weekend. I want you to feel, I want to echo what Joanna just said, that there's so many people with us that are here right now, even on the internet. Hey, internet. We're live streaming. But really, that's true, that there are just so many folks whose shoulders we stand on in doing this work. And also, I really do believe that the future ones, the ones who are coming, who are just around the bend, I think of them often. They're here, they're with us, and they're grateful for this work that we are doing.
Okay, so with that, I just want to say thank you to all of our video representatives, and then also thank you to those who have provided the prayers for us this weekend. First, we had Verna Teller from the Pueblo of Isleta, and yesterday morning we had a prayer from Kathy Sanchez, and then this morning we had a meditation from the People of Color Yoga group who came in and helped us to learn how to let go of some of this heavy stuff. And then this evening, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Petuch Gilbert of the Pueblo of Acoma, who will be leading us in our closing prayer in the lobby. So can we all, okay, so one thing.
Just want to say that this water has been with us all weekend, and it's been our witness. And we have been, the water has heard everything that has been said here, and it has been our reminder and sort of our grounding point at, again, why we're doing this work and who we are doing it for. So, and it's been absorbing all of the prayers and the laughter and the good wishes and the snarky remarks and all of those things. I didn't mean to look at you. All right, so we're going to take this water out with us as we close this beautiful weekend and move forward.
And please take your belongings. We're going to start cleaning up, so as we go to the lobby, grab what you can, and then we'll see you in the lobby. We'll form a circle out there, and I think this is where we end the live stream. So to everybody out there in the world, we thank you for joining us. We honor your work. We honor you too, and